Good afternoon. How is everyone doing today? Well, we are very glad to be here. We are the Southminster Brass with Ted Johnson and Ron Kaufman, Dr. Ron Fulmer, Dr. Paul Wilson. So if we had one more doctor, we could be called the clinic. And John Burns, Dave Burns' son. And we're going to play a varied program of a lot of different things, short, sweet pieces. That's the way we like it. We're going to start off. How many people here are a fan of Gilbert and Sullivan? Okay, I love some Gilbert Sullivan. Okay, so we're going to start with the piece from The Pirates of Penzance, which is a very well-known thing, and this is called With Cat-Like Tread. And if you know this show, the pirates are sneaking up on the house of the minor major general while the police are hiding in the woods, and they're sneaking up, singing about how quiet they're being, singing very loudly about how quiet they're being. So we will be nice and loud, and this has possibly their most famous melody ever, but no one knows it as a Gilbert and Sullivan melody. So at the end, I'm going to ask you, what do you know this melody? You'll know it. It'll come up in the trombone. You'll say, I know that song. I didn't know that was Gilbert and Sullivan. So here we go. One bar. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, how many people recognized Hail, Hail, the Gang's All Here? How many people knew that was Gilbert and Sullivan? Anyone? Okay, a few people did. I didn't know that, so there you go. All right, from that we're going to transition over to Glenn Miller. We promised to have a little Glenn Miller, and I'm a big fan of his stuff. So He had a lot of very popular songs in the 1940s, but what was considered his signature song is Moonlight Serenade. And this is one that normally we need some saxophones, and we don't have any saxophones, but we can make brass instruments sound a little more like a saxophone by putting in a mute. So in this song, we're going to have the trumpet and the trombone, which normally have a kind of brassy, big sound. We're going to have them put a mute, which is something you stick into the bell, and it changes the sound. So I'm going to ask Ron here. Ron, will you place a little lick without your mute so they can hear what that sounds like? All right, now you put a mute in and play the same thing for them. And this is called a cup mute because it's kind of the shape of a cup. You could pour a little water in there if you wanted to. All right, so this is a song that actually originally was put out as Now I Lay Me Down to Weep. And then it went through a couple of different versions of lyrics and finally ended up being Moonlight Serenade in 1939 is when this came out on the charts. So anyone here ever danced to Moonlight Serenade? Anyone? Okay, one or two. Okay, well, if not, just picture yourself maybe doing a little dance to this. A foxtrot, I think? I don't know. Tell me what you do to this one. Okay, one bar. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, who all has heard of Ferdinand Joseph Lamotte? Name on everyone's lips? No? Who's heard of Jelly Roll Morton? All right, that was his actual name, but Jelly Roll Morton was a very famous turn-of-the-century pianist and band leader, one of the founders of jazz. Started in New Orleans, actually, playing at the age of 14 in a brothel. Sorry to say, when his grandmother found this out, she kicked him out of the house. And he made it all around the country a long time ago. He was in Chicago for a while. He was in New York, ended up in Los Angeles. Composed a lot of different well-known pieces. This is one that he did with a group called the New Orleans Rhythm Kings. And it's called Milenberg Joys. Milenberg or Milnberg was a city right near New Orleans. It's now been absorbed and is part of New Orleans. So, but at the time it was a separate little town, and he wrote this for that town, so we'll play it for you. This is Milenburg Joys by Jelly Roll Morton. Yeah, repeat's good. Oh, and I have to say, if you've been to any of our concerts before, you know I live to get the melody because the tuba never gets the melody. Not only do I get a little bit of the melody, but I get like my own note all by myself. You'll hear it a couple times, so be prepared to be impressed. This is great. All right. 2 bars. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, we're gonna pivot to the classical portion of the concert now, where we go back a little bit in time and go back and do 2 dances for you, actually 2.5. So we're gonna go back to the Renaissance first, and a piece by Thomas Morley, who wrote a lot of madrigals. So if you ever done a little singing and did like Renaissance singing, you probably sang some of his works. And this was originally a madrigal called Now Is the Month of Maying, which is about as far away as we can get from May right now, but it'll come back. But it's also a dance, so this is going to be a dance, and it starts as a sort of stately duple dance, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. And that would probably be a pavane or something where the chord's sort of progressing, you're sort of elegantly going. But then we switch into a tripla where it's a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that'd be more like a galliard, which was a dance where you would actually jump up in the air and do little kicks. And I thought it was kind of funny. This would be at the time of, say, Queen Elizabeth. And her privy chamber reported, "The Queen is so well, as I assure you. 6 or 7 galliards in a morning, besides music and singing, is her ordinary exercise." So picture Queen Elizabeth in her fancy ball gown, jumping up in the air, doing a little kick here, and you got some idea how the middle of this goes. So these are 2 Renaissance dances by Thomas Morley. And we will end with a bowing note. So once we play the whole thing, then we just do one more long held note, and that's not something you hear in music so much anymore, but back then, when the dancers were done, you, of course, had to bow to your partner. This was just courtesy. So we need a note to do that. So you'll hear the note, and anyone wants to get up and do a bow or a courtesy, you may. Otherwise, you can just appreciate that that's what would have happened. With repeat. 2 bars. 1, 2, ready. All right, so I promised you 2 dances. That was sort of 1.5 because it was sort of a variation of that. So we're going to do another dance now. This one's by Johannes Brahms, who may be a more familiar composer to you. He did a series of dances called the Hungarian dances, and these were originally written for piano 4-hand, meaning you had to find a person who had 4 hands, which was very uncommon back then. So 2 people would play it together instead. That made it a little easier. The thing about this piece is, so it's called a Hungarian dance, but it keeps switching tempos over and over and over. I don't know how you would dance to it, but I've got this vision in my head that if I put on a gorilla suit and capered around the stage, it would make sense, which makes me think I've seen a movie where maybe they use this as like a Keystone Cops thing or something. So if you recognize this tune and go, oh yeah, there is a movie and a gorilla runs around the stage or something, come tell me after the show, because I'm dying to know, where have I heard this? Why does it make me want to put on a gorilla suit and dance around? So here we go with Brahms' Hungarian dance, number 5 or number 1, depending on who you ask. Oh, and I have to point out, this has a very fast melody that would be played in the piano. We gave it to the trombone, which is the hardest thing because you got to do that slide really, really fast. So poor Ron is going to be breaking a sweat over here trying to get his slide back and forth as fast as. So we're going to hold the tempo here. If you all start clapping along, don't clap too fast because we're going to lose Ron and that slide is going to fly across the stage. So here we go. Not too fast. Okay. Give you 1 bar. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, let's hear for the trombone. Now, how many people would like to see a gorilla suit with that? Doesn't that sound like I should be in a gorilla suit? It just feels like that to me. All right, we're going to come back to a little more Glenn Miller because we're featuring him this time. So another one of his very famous pieces is American Patrol. This, though, was originally a march from the late 1800s written by Frank Meacham, a patriotic march that worked into the middle of it things like, what do we have? Yankee Doodle, Columbia Gem of the Ocean, but we've left those parts out. We're keeping the swing dance version of this. So this is up there with a couple of his other really famous ones, the Chattanooga Choo Choo, String of Pearls, Moonlight Cocktail, I've Got a Gal in Kalamazoo. Those were all number one on the charts at some time during 1942. So that was kind of the heyday of Glenn Miller. Then he went to the war and then died in 1945. So we lost him kind of early. But we will play for you the American Patrol. All right, 2 bars. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I should point out that Paul is our resident arranger, so he did both the with Cat-Like Tread and the arrangement of that one. So we appreciate all his efforts to pull that together, because most of these were not written for brass quintet. Surprise, surprise. All right, we're going to jump back to the classical for one more piece before we get to our finale. This is a piece that when I saw the title, I was like, I've never heard that before. It was called Jupiter / Thaxted, Thaxted. Thaxted? Has anyone ever heard of Thaxted? It turns out it's a village in England where the composer Gustav Holst spent a lot of his life, and he actually composed this and calls the melody Thaxted, but everyone who's heard it has probably heard it from his seminal work that everyone knows him for, which is The Planets, which is a big orchestral piece. Charlotte Symphony does it every year or two. All orchestras love to do this piece. It's got a choir, it's got 2 tubas, it's got umpteen different brass things, bass oboe, all these things you just never see. So it's written for large orchestra, of which we are not. So we won't play the whole thing because we can't do that. But we can play the melody of Thaxted, which comes from the movement of Jupiter. He wrote this piece back in the 20s, and he only had 8 planets because back then they didn't know about Pluto. However, he's kind of ahead of his time because, Pluto got demoted to being a dwarf planet. It's not an official planet anymore. So he actually had the planets right. There are only 8. And then there's the dwarf planet. So we'll see if it ever gets promoted again or they find another one to be its brother. So this is Jupiter, or the theme called Thaxted by Gustav Holst. 3 + 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Well, as I said, we like to keep our concerts short and sweet, so we've come to the last piece of this one. We're going to end with a march, because we do like marches, and most people appreciate that. This is a very well-known march called Under the Double Eagle. Does anyone know what country used to have as its emblem a 2-headed eagle? Russia did, but this one's a different one. Close to Germany, very close. It was Austria. Austria, under its empire, had a double-headed eagle. This one's actually written in 1893, but then it actually came back as sort of a country tune. So Bill Boyd and his Cowboy Ramblers did it in 1935, and it sort of hung on. Even Benny Goodman did a rendition of this. So we're going to do the march version, but you can picture this in a lot of different things. And we're very delighted you all came out to join us today, and look forward to being with you again at our next concert. So your Southminster Brass will take it out with Under the Double Eagle. Straight through. 1, 2, ready, go. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to do one little encore. We're going to do everyone's favorite Finnish polka. It's the only polka I know from Finland, therefore it's my favorite. It's called the Ievan polka, and Ieva was a girl, and in the song it's about how she sneaks out to go dancing with her boyfriend, dancing the polka. So we will end with a quick rendition of the Ievan polka, soon to be your favorite Finnish polka. One bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. The bar is open.